All right, so first things first, thank you for being here, Fred, and it's good to see you again. It's been a long time since we saw each other, except for this morning, obviously, which was nice. So thank you again for being here. And for all the people who are viewing this video, one of the main reason that I created this video was I wanted to talk to Fred and kind of go through the process in regards to what it takes to actually be able to work with an individual who can eventually become a private lender for you when it comes to real estate investing. As you guys probably all know, one of the biggest obstacles when it comes to investing in real estate is actually getting access to money to actually buy real estate. As real estate investors, we all have the ability to go to a local bank sometimes to get financing for properties. However, there are some type of loans that banks just won't lend on, specifically ones that need a lot of work. There's not a lot of banks who want to lend on properties that need a lot of work and are in complete disrepair. As such, one of the tools that most real estate investors who are successful have in their back pocket is the ability to fund some of these deals with private lenders. This call and this video is designed to kind of show you what it takes to actually secure one of those relationships with a private lender. And what I wanted to do today was just go through a bunch of questions in the hopes that it can teach you guys how you can also go and build these relationships yourself to hopefully find some private investors that are willing to invest in you. So Fred actually, happens to be at this point in time a very good friend of mine. But when we first started off, we were complete strangers. And the objective of this video and this call is to show you how we were able to develop a relationship, and specifically from my end, how I was able to develop a relationship and get to a point where Fred felt comfortable enough to actually, take advantage of one of the opportunities that I had for private investors. So with that said, Fred, thank you so much for being here, and thank you again and welcome. To start off, Fred, I guess one of the things I want to ask you, and one of the things that I think would be extremely helpful to our viewers is, can you perhaps just talk about, how we met, like where, why, what made you talk to me, so on and so forth in the first place?
Okay, we met in Harrisburg on a Thursday evening. It was Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, on a Thursday
Wow, you
evening.
remember it was a Thursday
Oh,
evening. That's impressive.
yes, yes. And we were going to a real estate investors meeting on Front Street in Harrisburg. And what made me talk to you in the introduction, they went around the room and everyone introduced themselves. There were about 30 people there. And you said something about Maryland in your introduction. I live on the Pennsylvania-Maryland line, and I was thinking of investing or looking at properties in Maryland, and I wanted to talk to somebody who knew about real estate in Maryland. So after the meeting, I walked up to you and asked about that, and I found out that you had attended a meeting in Maryland, and you didn't really invest in Maryland at that point. But anyways, we talked, and I realized you were very, very confident in what you said, and are very knowledgeable in what you said, and you carried yourself with a lot of confidence. And you, at the time, I was flipping a house, and I had questions about that, and you actually able to help me with some of the answers on that one. And
Hmm.
you gave me a card, so I thought, man, this is a good start. So
Yeah,
we started off on a very positive foot, and it progressed from there.
nice, nice. So business cards actually do work. So I gave you a business
Yep,
card. Okay.
yep, you did.
Well, number one lesson there is, hey, get business cards and go out there and give these to people when you meet them, um, and follow up with them. That's crucial as well. If I remember correctly, Fred, when I gave you that business card, did you follow up with me after that? Or
I
did I
did.
follow up with you? I forgot how it went.
I followed up with you.
Okay.
Um, I wrote you the next day and thanked you for the information you'd given me. And I don't remember what the information was. It was just, excuse me, it was something pertaining to the house that I was working on. And
Okay. Okay.
I just thanked you for that. And then we started emailing each other back and forth. And then we decided to start meeting. And we met
Okay.
in New York for breakfast. once a
Yep.
week.
Yep. I do remember that. And just to kind of, uh, tag team on top of what you just said, I do remember the first meeting that I also had with Fred. And I remember, like you said, he was in the middle of a flip and he was having some issues with, I think, a partner, or he was having issues with getting the deal done as quickly as possible. I think that's what one of the issues was. And I remember you asking me for some advice, and I remember giving you some advice in regards to, what are some of the things that I do to kind of get my contractors to kind of speed up and get deals done quickly. If I remember correctly, that was one of the issues, right? That
It was,
partner
yeah,
of yours was kind of doing all the work himself, and it was going really slow.
very slowly,
Yep,
very slowly.
yep. If I remember correctly, I think Fred was basically, so he had partnered up with a guy to do a flip. I think it was his first flip, if I'm not mistaken.
It was, yes.
And the guy that he partnered up with was the one who was kind of the handyman who would go into the property, manage everything, and do all that stuff. And Fred, I guess at the time, was kind of partner with him in regards to, they split it 50-50, like financially, if I'm not mistaken, when you guys went
I
in.
paid everything. I did all the finances.
Okay.
I paid
Okay.
all the finances and I paid him a wage.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. That's what it was.
The work he did. Yeah.
And interestingly, why I bring that up, guys, is because at the time I didn't really know exactly what the financing was and what relationship Fred had. But one thing I really, really want to point out here is we started off as complete strangers. We met at a meeting. He asked me a question, and I took the time to actually answer his question and gave him the time of day rather than being some type of arrogant guy who didn't want to take the time to answer his questions. um, Fred was able to recognize that, hey, obviously, this guy, me in this case, knows what he's kind of doing. He's been doing this for a while. And he probably liked the fact that I took the time and actually, helped him and answered his question without being like, okay, yeah, let me move on to the next one. A lot of the times when people go to these networking meetings, they're like trying to talk to someone and give a card to someone, and they're trying to move on to the next person. Whereas in this scenario, I really took the time and, chit-chatted with Fred and really enjoyed the conversation. So that, number one, is an extremely crucial thing because that was Fred's first impression of me. And you want to make sure you're, putting your best foot forward. Now, if you're a person who's not a very helpful kind of person anyway, and you have no value to give to a relationship, this might be a little bit of a harder task for you. And then you need to work on yourself. That's your problem. But you need to become someone who can provide value and feels that you can take the time to help other people. Because this is a business where if you are not helpful to others, it's very likely that people aren't going to be helpful to you. Would you agree?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you would have been open that night, I'd have I'd have written you a note the next day, but that would have been it. I
And then
wouldn't
when you
have continued.
emailed me, I think I emailed you back and answered another question. And then I think you
Okay.
said thank you. And if I'm not mistaken, I said, hey, anytime, when I gave you my card, I meant it. If ever you want to call me again for any help or something like that, please give me a call. And that's exactly what I did. I remember it vividly. And, Fred on the other end probably thought, what the heck? Okay, well, maybe I'll call him again. And I think he did. And I answered another question. And then all of a sudden we said, hey, and then I said, well, Fred, why don't we actually meet in person? We'll have breakfast or something, and I can kind of maybe go into a little bit more detail on giving you some advice that could potentially help you. And I think you were very open to that, if I'm not mistaken.
I was very thankful.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Um, so now, after that first meeting, Fred, how did our relationship kind of flourish and blossom? Was it strictly business? Did it become kind of personal? Was it mixed? What do you remember?
It was very mixed. I remember the first morning we had breakfast. We met for about 2 hours, and I'm guessing here, but I would imagine that I remember a good part of it was just personal. We
Okay.
exchanged, our lives. We were married and had children, and all that. And then we started talking about real estate. And we
Okay.
started talking. I didn't know the I knew only the basics of real estate. So you were showing me, the next step after this and the next step after that, and you were actually teaching. And
Okay.
so
Good.
we got into that part where we mixed half half social, um, half business,
Hmm.
and it wasn't always half and half. It was a mixture of both. I don't remember which was the dominant part, but I know that they both grew at the same rate.
Okay. So when we started meeting, did I come to the meeting? Did you get the impression that I was coming there, coming to get something from you? Or did
No,
you get the impression I was coming there to help you?
I got the impression you were coming there to help me. I felt that when you were coming, it was a favor to me,
Okay. Okay.
not the other way around.
All right. So for you guys who are watching right now, that's again goes back to what I was saying. I really had no ulterior motive at that time. I had no idea Fred was in a position to actually lend me money at some point in time. I really didn't know that. Here I was just kind of going out of my way to help him. Now, I do also, I'm a big believer in karma, meaning the more people you help, the more more help comes your way. So that definitely was probably the one thing that was in my mind. I'm ingrained with that thought. You want to be helpful in this business. Believe it or not, whoever you are right now, wherever you're watching, there is something you know more than someone else. And it's always a good idea to share what you know because it's very possible that that person you're sharing with had no idea. We're bombarded with so many different things. We have always so many different things that occupy our mind that it's very likely that you know things about certain things that other people don't know. At that time, I knew a good bit about real estate investing and managing a fix and flip property, and for me, it was very easy to share that knowledge with Fred. So, lesson again is you really want to share your knowledge. I went in there with no ulterior motive. The only motive that I could think of at that point in time was, well, here's a guy who needs some help. I have the knowledge. I'd love to help him. It was an extremely, that's the way I approached it at the time. Um, Now, I think we might have touched upon this, but what value did you feel that I was bringing to you at that time when we first started kind of meeting?
I I felt at the time that you were bringing me everything. I had
Good.
very little knowledge other than buying the house. The guy that was working with me um, knew how to fix up houses, so he could give me a good estimate on how much it would cost to fix up. And other than that, I was going kind of blind.
Mm-hmm,
I was
mm-hmm.
just feeling my way. I wanted to get into it, and I didn't have anybody. I live in Waynesboro, so there was nobody around here that I knew that was flipping homes. And so you just taught me everything. Taught me
Nice.
what to be careful of. You taught me what to look for. Um, you helped me out with some projects around the house as far as what to do with them. And I don't remember what they are now, but I remember your suggestions and I took some of them. And
Nice.
so you were adding a lot of value to me because I was like a first grader
Yeah,
in
yeah.
real estate investing. I just didn't know what was going on. And you were also teaching me about the future and how to take the money that I make from the first house or I don't make and reinvest it and all that. So you were actually projecting about a year in advance or 6 months in advance.
If I'm not mistaken, I know at one point in time we even talked about what's called a 1031 exchange, where you take the money, the profits from one deal, and rather than paying any taxes on it, you take that profit, let's say it's 30,000, 40,000, and as long as you don't touch that money, take it and roll it into another property, and you don't have to pay taxes on it. So I do remember even having those type of conversations.
Right.
If I had a bell, I would be ringing it right now, guys, but because one of the things that Fred said there was extremely important. He said I was adding a lot of value. Again, I was adding a lot of value to him. I'm not some crazy, extremely smart kind of guy. But here's the thing, at the time, I knew something that Fred did not know. So it was very simple for me to add value. Do I learn from other people? Yes, I still try to learn from other people who know way more than me when it comes to real estate. But this is what I mean. No matter where you are, you have the ability to add value to someone else because there is things that you know that they just don't know. So, that's extremely important. Now, Um, the other thing, I don't think we talked about this in my, some of the notes that I had here, but during all those meetings, how long were we meeting? How long had we been meeting, kind of in your mind, if you remember, before I even ever talked about private lending or anything like that? Do you recall?
You talked about private lending. I remember we started meeting, I think, in the early spring, I think, or no, it was in August. It
Yeah,
was in
I don't
August.
recall.
It was August. Anyways, it was before Christmas that you started talking to me about private lending. Not for you and I to, or not for me to lend you money, but just as a source of income.
Okay.
You
As a
just
source
presented
of
that.
financing that we use as real estate
Yes.
investors.
Yes.
So if I remember correctly, I had given you examples of how I do some of the deals
Right.
with other
You did.
private lenders, correct? Okay.
Yes.
So I hadn't even presented the opportunity to you yet.
No.
Okay.
No, you hadn't.
Okay. Now, before I had actually talked about private lending and how sometimes I work with other private lenders to finance some of the deals that I'm buying and when it comes to real estate, had you did you know anything about that type of an opportunity when it came to private lending when it comes to real estate?
I knew that it existed. I didn't know anything about how it existed. It just,
Okay.
like I know there's a moon, but I don't know what makes up the moon. It's one of those things.
Swiss
So
cheese, Fred.
I know.
uh, okay. So now we've progressed. We've been talking a lot. We're meeting for breakfast maybe once every month or so. I forgot how often we used to meet.
That was every week.
Was it every week for a little while
Yeah.
there? Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
For
So
about
my
a year.
apologies. And again, guys, this is important. I think why we were solidifying our relationship, Fred was starting to probably see some consistency in me coming through and adding value and, you know, being willing to meet with him, and we were doing it weekly. It's much like how you build a relationship with a significant other. You have to give the relationship time. You have to nurture it, and that's what we were doing. That's what I was kind of doing subconsciously as well at the time. Didn't really even realize, but you can do this methodically if you pay attention to the signs of how you develop a relationship. Again, it goes really back to the key of always entering the relationship and figuring out what can you do for this other person, because that is going to be extremely valuable for you. Now, as far as the private lending, once we've talked about it, I kind of talked to you about it, you understood a little bit. What was it that potentially attracted you to it? Like, well, what was I saying that maybe made your ears perk up a little bit, like, ooh, hey, maybe this is something I want to do? Do you recall or anything like that?
I do. You and I were at breakfast one morning, and you were asking me if I'd sold the house. It was after Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
I sold the house that we fixed up, and I wasn't particularly interested in going with the same guy in a new venture, and I had the money,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just, and you said something about, are you going to buy a house? And I said, no. I said, I'm not sure I want to. And you said, have you thought of private lending?
Mm-hmm.
And then I asked you about that. And what really attracted me to that is I thought, you make between 10 and 12% on a house sometimes. Sometimes you make a whole lot more. But when you're starting out,
Mm-hmm.
I'm already retired. I'm not going to take this too far. So I don't have to do any of the work. I can lend you the money and
Mm-hmm.
make the same kind of return that I do with flipping a house.
Mm,
So
good.
I looked at it. What interested me most was the rate of return that I would get on my investment.
Nice. Nice. Okay.
That's and then the fact that I knew you. Had I not known you, it would have been a different story. But
Yeah.
because I knew you and trusted you, and I thought, geez, this is easy money. I sit in my couch and I make money.
Hey, actually, out of curiosity, by that point in time, we'd never done a transaction together.
Never, never.
Why? What was it what made you trust me at that point in time? It's not like you'd lend me money before. You didn't lend me $5. To buy you anything. What was it that I had built up a trust with you?
Well, one of the things is we went out with our wives together
Okay.
on a meeting, and
That's a
that
big
went really
deal.
well. Pardon me?
So that's a big deal, bringing the wives into the equation.
Yeah. Well, it kind of is in my family. But anyways, we'd gone out to dinner, and you and I were developing a closer relationship. And I was starting to like what I saw, and I thought, and you also showed me a paper of some of the investments you had that said, if you lend me, let's say $50,000, I have this much money invested that I can pay you back should I drop dead or drop out of this tomorrow.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
that gave me the confidence to trust in you. And like I said, we built up the relationship between you and I on a personal level.
Mm-hmm.
So that helped a little bit. And since I knew you and I thought, this is a good opportunity, I'm going to take care. I'm going to do it.
Nice,
So,
nice.
and again, the rate of percent or the rate of return on it was good.
Okay,
And
okay.
in industry, you talk about the internal rate of return, and that's what I was looking at
Yeah,
as a,
nice,
as a value
nice.
indicate.
I do also remember one thing quite vividly. It still sticks out of my mind. I think it might be important for the viewers to understand. I remember asking Fred about, hey, what are you going to do? Are you going to buy another property, so on and so forth? And he kind of said, no, not really. I said, what about like rentals? Do you want to buy a rental property and hold it long term? He's like, no, I don't want to deal with tenants. And then so I basically said all these other options, and then I said, well, it sounds like you're interested in real estate, but you don't really want to do much rigorous work. You don't want to deal with like the tenants or dealing with the fix and flipping, because you just, it seems as though you understand the value of real estate, but you're not into that really. And I asked him the question, and he said, yeah, I'm not into that. And then I said, well, would you be interested in possibly being a private lender where you could actually just lend money, sit back, let me do all the work, and I can just, pay you a nice rate of return? And I actually remember vividly what came out of your mouth next. And you said, I was waiting to see how long it would take before you asked me. And it was something to those words. And why I bring that up is, by then I had built up so much value that Fred had already even heard about me talking about private lending. And he almost was probably wondering, well, why the heck is this guy not asking me or giving me this opportunity? One of the things that when it comes to raising private money that a lot of investors are intimidated by is they're constantly thinking that they have to go out there and beg for this money. You need to actually switch that a little bit. I was actually giving Fred an opportunity. When you trust yourself, when you trust the system, Fred could not have gone to a bank and gotten 7 to 10% return on his money, guaranteed by real estate. There was no interest rates like that. It just doesn't happen. So
And just
when you,
remember,
what's that?
excuse
Go
me
ahead.
just a second. This was back in 2008-9 when we had the downturn in the economy a lot.
Yeah,
Remember,
yeah,
the interest rates were really, really low. So
yeah,
what you were saying made it much more attractive.
yeah, yeah. So, it was more of me presenting an opportunity that Fred could take advantage of rather than me saying, Fred, can you please lend me some money? I need some money. And this goes to like the positioning of what you're doing when you're working. If you go into this relationship begging for money, it's going to be very difficult for you to get money from anyone, because people can tell when someone is desperate for something. Uh, More than anything, a relationship between Fred and I was being built, and he understood that I'm doing this with other people, and he understood that, oh, this is an opportunity where he could also lend money, get a nice rate of return, have it guaranteed by the real estate itself. he'd never be lending me more than what the house is worth. In fact, he'd never be lending me more than around 60, 70% of what the house is worth. So he's really, safe collateral wise. So I do remember that. Is that correct, Fred? It was almost like that. You were like, hey, I was wondering when you would ask me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's kind of how it turned out. It was nice. Now, so was it, I think we probably talked about it. Was it around that time when I built up a relationship with you, talked about other private lenders, that you kind of realized, hey, what the heck? I want to take advantage of this opportunity as well.
It is, and there's one element that you're aware of, and I think you forgot,
Okay.
is I'm married, and my wife controls half the money.
Okay.
So, I mean, we don't spend. I would not go out and lend you $50,000-$100,000 without talking to her.
Yeah.
And so, you designed the first opportunity with a lower priced home, and paid it off rather quickly, in a year or 2 or 3. I'm not sure, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, it was a very quick investment, a very quick turnaround, which then convinced her that this was a good opportunity.
Okay.
Because at that point, she only knew you from meeting you once or twice.
Actually, that is a good point. So I had already met your wife as well prior to the first time you would actually lend money to me. And I think that, to be honest with you, I didn't even think about it, and Fred's right. Extremely important. Yes, when you're dealing with a potential private investor, you have to understand that there's another party involved, and it might be very difficult for you to convince someone unless you really have built that relationship. And in this case, I did build that relationship. And again, this was happening all kind of by default, because I hadn't even talked about any private lending or asking Fred for, to take advantage of this opportunity prior to that. I'd already met his wife, my wife, and we went out to dinner a few times. We went to some shows. So all this stuff was kind of happening in the background, which was cementing the relationship that we were building, which now when we look back, 2020, I can see all those steps that were happening. But at the time, I didn't it was just happening organically, which was nice. Now, Fred, the first time you really decided that, okay, you know what, I'm going to do this. And I think the first loan that you might have given me was like 50,000. I forgot what it was, but how did you trust that I was going to pay you back?
Okay, I alluded to this a little bit before, but you had given me the financial paper that showed me that if you default, there were other avenues that I could pursue to get my money back. So I wasn't just trusting you. I also had, I forget what they were, stocks or bonds or annuities or something. I don't know. That was a little bit of a confidence booster, because I trusted you, but I didn't know you extremely well. And so, it's a big decision to give someone $50,000 or to lend someone $50,000. And so that helped a lot. And you had taught me so much about it that I felt comfortable in lending with you.
Okay.
A lot of it was your personality and your knowledge of the product.
Okay. Nice.
My wife and I are very big on, and I know this is probably wrong, but if I'm buying something and you're very pleasant, I'll buy from you quicker than I will from somebody who's not pleasant.
Okay.
I don't know why. We rely on the personality of the person selling us the product. Now, there are times when you can't do that, but if we are between two products and we think they're both the same, we will go with the person who has the better personality.
All right, that makes sense. And again, I think you alluded to this, Fred, again, but let me expand on it a little bit. By the time that I had presented an opportunity and got like a potential interest from you, then when I actually had a deal like a fix and flip, I think if I remember correctly, I had brought the deal to you. I showed you that, hey, so this property that I'm buying is worth 100,000 fixed up. Here are the comps. Here are the comparables of other properties in the area that verify that this property is worth 100. Here's an estimate from a contractor that I'm working with who says it's going to take around $20,000 to fix this property up. Here's my contract that says I can buy the property for $45,000. So basically I need 45,000 to buy it and another 20,000 to fix it up. So I roughly need $65,000 on a property that once fixed up is going to be worth 100. My projection is that it's going to take about 3 to 4 months to do the repairs. Let's give it another 2 months to sell the property. So Fred, my projection is, are you willing to lend me $70,000 on a property that's worth 100, which I just proved to you? I also just showed you from comparable properties that it's taking about this long to sell a property. I also showed you a contractor estimate that showed it's going to take this much money to fix up the property. So would you agree that in kind of black and white, I kind of showed you all the numbers and how they would potentially work before I even, asked for the money?
You did. And had it not been for that, I wouldn't have bought it. Because I worked in finance for 20 years, and I knew what numbers meant, and I knew how they worked. And
Okay.
so I had to have some kind of background information or some kind of a guarantee that you just weren't pulling this out of the roof. That
Mm-hmm.
you were actually, here is the cost of the house, here's how much it's going to cost, here's how much the labor or here's how much the contractor is going to charge me, and here's what I plan. I plan to sell it in so many months, and I'll give you this interest. So it was all there. All the components were needed for the transaction to go through smoothly. There were no unknowns. And
So,
when I looked over the estimate sheet, you even had in there a certain amount. I forget what amount it was for contingency, knowing that something would go wrong or probably would go wrong, and you'd have to
okay.
pay extra money.
So would it be safe to assume if I had come to you instead and said, "Hey Fred, I think this property is worth 100. I think it will take me like, I don't know, 3 or 5 months to fix it up. I think it will cost maybe 20,000 to do the repairs. Hey, you want to lend me $70,000?"
I wouldn't have thought about it.
Okay.
I would not have thought about it. Especially, well, not even now, but no. I I'm a
So the
person that
fact
has
that I brought you kind of some detailed concrete numbers backed by something really helped you decide whether or not this was a good opportunity to invest in. Is that
oh
correct?
yeah, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I would not have invested had I not had all the background, I would not have invested.
Okay. I'm putting my
And you
glasses
had
on for effect. All the people watching see how important that was. I mean, it was extremely important, like Fred said, to know your product, to know and to be able to present this to someone. You can't go and ask someone just the same way you can't go and ask a bank for money without proving to them what it is that you're looking to do, how you're looking to do it. You got to do the same thing with a private investor. Fred and I had already built up a nice relationship at that point in time, but I still needed to treat him the exact same way and protect his interest the same exact way that I would a bank. And if I didn't deserve to, have him work with me. Did I interrupt you, Fred? I think you were going to say something. I'm sorry.
no, 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 no. You're fine.
Okay. Um, so I think we talked about, obviously, those are some of the things that I did that made you feel comfortable because I was kind of giving you concrete numbers. Was there anything else in the form of guarantees or security that I had kind of presented to you that made you feel even more comfortable?
I think we've covered them all. And just reviewing, you gave me the numbers,
Okay.
all the cost of the house, the cost of the repairs. You gave me the comps that said this is what houses of this type are selling in this area. Um, and you and I have been friends for a while, so I was building on that. And an important thing for me is that we had just not become friends. We'd been friends for 6 months to a year at this point. So
Mm-hmm.
had I just known you for 2 months, I'd have never done it.
Okay.
Because we knew each other for a while, and we had been out together, and we had done some travels together. We went out to Pennsylvania, out near Pittsburgh, I think, to a I forget what it was, tax sale.
Oh
We were
yeah.
going out
Geez, I
together.
completely forgot about that.
Yes. We
Wow.
did that. We
Yeah.
spent the day together. We did a couple other things like that, and it solidified what I had in mind that you were, what type of person I thought you were.
Okay.
Um,
Good.
it was almost like when I was dating my wife.
Hmm.
I had no intentions of marrying her in the first 2 months.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
we dated off and on for 6 years before I finally asked her to marry me. Well, for 5 years.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to make sure that I knew her inside and out.
Hmm.
There is there is an office person and there is a social person, and they are not always the same people.
Okay. Okay.
Sometimes people in an office can give you all kinds of information, but outward in the social realm, they're a totally different person and I don't care person. And I wanted to know you from both the social and the personal, or from the personal and the uh, business, that you were the same person, and that was very important to me.
Okay.
On
Again,
this type of a loan. Now, if I'm taking a loan out from the bank, of course I don't have that opportunity. But
yeah.
in a personal loan, I think they're both important.
All right. What Fred just said there, I mean, viewers and whoever's watching right now, extremely, extremely important. I hope you guys understood how important it was what he just said there. It's important that they get to know you on a personal level as well. They need to see that type of stuff in order for them to really trust you at that level. Now, one thing I think Fred, he will remember this now when I bring it up, but one other thing I definitely want to make sure. I know another thing that I really exemplified or touched upon was letting Fred know that he would be protected just like a bank would be protected, meaning um, I would give him a mortgage, meaning it would be recorded on title that Fred had lent me money. So that in case anything ever happened, number one, there would be a public record that he had lent me money. Also, there is no way I could have sold the property without paying Fred off because he actually had a lien on the property. Do you remember that, Fred?
Oh, I do.
Yep.
And just to elaborate on that for a second, had it not been that I did not give you the check, I deposited the check in an account that your lawyer had sent me at a bank, and so I didn't hand you a check for $50,000. Say, here, Mick, do as you wish, or
Yeah.
I hope to
Yeah.
get it back. I deposited in an account that your lawyer had set up for this transaction, and then when the settlement was done and you bought the house, I got the mortgage and the lien, all that stuff back. You know, I think they faxed it to me or emailed it to me right away,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that was
It,
extremely important to me.
Also, if I remember, Fred, maybe we did, maybe we didn't. I know I obviously said it to you. I think I had said something to you to the effect of, look, the attorney that I work with, they'll create the appropriate documents and we'll send them to you ahead of time. If you want to present them to your lawyer to review them, please feel free. I want you to feel extremely comfortable in regards to what's going on. I don't know if you did. You might have even. I'm not sure what it was. But I
You
know I
forget my,
presented it to you.
you forget my wife worked for a lawyer.
Oh, there you go. Okay. That's actually a good point. She worked for a lawyer doing title work, so she understood
Yeah,
exactly what all this kind of stuff works. So that might have helped the situation as well.
it did.
One
It did.
additional thing that I did, Fred, which I think you probably remember now again, is did I list you as a mortgagee on the insurance of the property?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
because I get notices when your premiums are due.
Okay. Now, why did I do that? In case, let's say the house burns down while I'm working on it. Guess what? If the insurance is going to pay out, guess who gets paid first before I get paid? Fred. Again, an extremely important aspect of protecting your private investor, just like you would have to with a bank. Basically, I had done so many transactions at this point in time, knowing how banks work. I duplicated everything that a normal bank would do. I duplicated for Fred to make him extremely protected from any mishap that could potentially happen. So that was extremely important as well. So now, Fred, we did the first transaction, and why did you decide to actually refer me to some of your friends for other potential, people who would be interested in possibly lending me money? What was it that happened? Or do you remember kind of how your conversation went with the other friends of yours and how you told them about the opportunity and why you told them about the opportunity?
I was at a social engagement, and a guy that I knew fairly well. I hadn't seen him in a while, but he's a little bit younger than me. But anyways, he asked me what I was doing in retirement, and I told him about the um, flipping of the house, and I said now I'm doing I call it hard money investing, and he asked about it, and he was very interested in it, and he asked a lot of questions, um, just how it happened, how I got into it, who I did it with, and all that stuff. And I told him what I've told you this evening, and he became interested and asked to, if you were looking for other investors.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
so I contacted you, and I remember you came down and we went to visit them one night.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Excellent. Um, for the viewers out there, this again was an extremely important, another tool in my tool belt was I had made Fred feel comfortable enough, did exactly what I said I was going to do, paid him on time, paid him monthly, paid him back, paid him the amount of interest that I said I was going to pay him, protected him the way I said I was going to protect him. He felt comfortable enough to refer someone else and spoke highly of the transaction, how smoothly it went. And it allowed me to build, another private investor who was able to lend me money on another deal, and they did. It's extremely important that if you do a good job and you do it respectfully and you take care of your private investors and their interests first, almost seamlessly referrals start to even happen when it comes to this arena. So
You're going to get referrals one of two ways. You're earning the referrals. You're going to get bad reviews, or you're going to get good reviews.
Okay,
So
nice.
yours were good, and I shared them. I could have easily, had you double crossed me or done something I didn't care for, I could have badmouthed you.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when you make when
Well,
you
thanks for not bad mouthing.
I didn't say I didn't.
Uh-oh. Oh, geez.
No, but I'm just saying, if a transaction's good, people talk. I mean,
Yeah,
you keep that very quiet. You
true.
talk to somebody. So
Um, out of curiosity, just so the people are aware, do you remember how I paid you monthly, Fred? Or first of all, did I pay you monthly, or did I just borrow the money and wait to pay you back all in lump sum plus the interest? Do you kind of remember how we structured it?
I think the first one we just structured it. I got interest at the end, but that was a short 4 month, 5 month thing.
Okay.
Um, then, if you remember, we bought that house that had the little apartment or garage or something beside it,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a lot more money that I lent you,
Mm-hmm.
and you knew that was going to be a while, and you were talking about renting that one, so
Mm-hmm.
you started paying me monthly by that with that one. And
Okay.
at first, you started out writing me a check every month, and then you started with it's now called apartments,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I get my money, the same time every month.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, why I brought that question up was because there's several different ways you can structure, these transactions with private investors. The first one, like Fred described, basically it was 50,000. I knew I was going to be in and out fairly quickly, so I said to him, I said, "Hey, I'll borrow 50,000 from you, and then when I'm done, I'll pay you back your 50,000 plus whatever interest had accrued at that time, if I remember correctly. Correct?"
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I ended up, I don't know, giving you back like 57,000 or whatever the number ended up being. And basically Fred, so I didn't have to make him any monthly payments, which kind of makes it easy sometimes for me, trying, who wants to be writing checks all the time to all different type of people. So it was convenient for me. And Fred was also happy with it. He was, by then so much trust had been built up. He trusted me. And that's how I did it then. The next time I think I borrowed from Fred, it was a different transaction. It was a property that I was buying to actually keep as a rental property. And my exit strategy at that point in time was, Fred, you can lend me money. I'll buy it, fix it up a little bit. Once I get the property rented, once it's rented for about 6 months, I can then myself go back to a bank and refinance the property into a bank loan and then pay you off at that point in time. And I think it ended up being maybe a year or 2 years, a year, 12 months, 13, 14, 15 months, something like that. In that transaction, however, since it was a little bit more of a stretched out transaction, Fred and I had agreed that I would pay him monthly. And like he said, I first started off by paying him checks every month. And then I went above and beyond and set up something else to once again make Fred feel comfortable. I designed it so that automatically payments would come out of my bank account and go directly into Fred's account every, first day of any new month. And Fred obviously started to see that this was happening without him having to call me. Where's my payment? None of that. There was never a call that Fred had to make and say, hey, where's my payment? None of that ever happened because, number one, I was on top of paying him on time. And then number two, I set up automatic payments to pay him right away, so that my priority at that position was, number one, to take care of Fred and take care of his interests. So anything else on that, Fred, or pretty good?
Nope, that's everything on that.
Okay. Now, well, maybe an important question, maybe it's redundant, but after the first transaction and it went through nicely, what made you want to do a second transaction with me?
It was so easy.
Ah.
It's just so plain easy.
Okay.
At that point, we were still meeting about every week or every other week, and you showed me the houses. Eventually,
Okay.
we got to the point where the houses that I have invested with you now, I have the address of them.
Mm-hmm.
I've looked them up on the internet, but I've never gone by and looked at them. I've never looked them up. I've never seen them.
Extremely important what you just mentioned.
And I bring that up because, of the amount of confidence that I have in what you're saying and doing.
Yeah. Thank you.
And this, by the way, has been going on for about 10 years now. I've been investing for 10 years. The first time was 2011.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, March of 2011.
Okay. An important thing for you viewers out there, a relationship that was built with a complete stranger, back in 2009, 2008, I'm not sure exactly when it started, has developed into transactional based transactions where Fred lends me money, I pay him back fairly quickly. Since then, Fred has been an investor and he's invested money with me on some of my long-term rental properties. And I've set up all of them on automatic payments that Fred's been making money on, for the last, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years now, I guess.
Well, actually 10 from the very first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, first was March 2011.
And, that's the type of relationship we built. Fred, is there anything that you feel that I could have done differently to make you feel even more comfortable? Any idea?
There's nothing. There is absolutely nothing. I have a degree in psychology,
Mm-hmm.
and I watch, people, and I watch how people handle themselves, and I'm always thinking, well, they could have done this better, or they could have done that better. I didn't see anything in that. There were no complaints. There were no, you covered everything. I think the fact that we went very slowly and we built the relationship along with the business part, and then you taught me so much about the business. If you remember, I took notes most of our
Yeah, I do remember.
And then I come home and put them on the computer. And so by the time you were asking for money, I had both the personal relationship with you, plus I knew you in the business sense, and
Mm-hmm.
you'd shown me work that you'd done, because we went to a lot of your work sites. And you showed me what you were doing, what you were going to do, and all that. And so I had the relationship there that I didn't lack any confidence in you at all. there was nothing that I know that you could have done better. And if you could have, I'd have probably told you.
Nice.
I'd have
Thank
probably
you.
asked you.
We'll probably finish this meeting very soon because I want to respect your time, obviously, Fred. Obviously, I could talk to you forever, which we will later on even. But if you could give any advice to some of our viewers who are potentially interested in building a relationship with a private lender and working these type of relationships, or going out there and asking for private money, if you could, I don't know how many points you might have, you might not have any. Is there anything that you could potentially say to them? What are some of the most important things that they really, really need to pay attention to?
Okay, we've talked about this before, but in summary,
Mm-hmm.
I can't emphasize enough knowing the person that you're lending the money to. There are so many scams and so many people that are anxious to take your money and run. And so the first thing is I had to know you personally, and I had to know you, like I said, both on a personal level and on a business level. And so we got to know each other that way. We went on several business trips together, or those day trips together. Um, and I would not give anybody money, just hand them a check unless I never expected to see it back again.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that it goes through a lawyer and it's handled through the legal system, I get copies of the mortgage, how much he owes me, and all the paperwork that a bank would give me. That helps a lot, and it's on record, and I know it's on record because I get calls from other people asking me if I want to lend money and all this, so I know that they're getting my name off the court records. Um, that that was very important to me,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that you said this is a $50,000 house. It's going to cost 70,000. You gave me the comps. You gave me all the background on the place, what you expected to do with it. You showed me all your estimate of fees or of cost. That all is important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so you gave me everything that I needed to make an informed decision. I didn't have to call you and say, or I didn't have to say to you, Nick, I don't know. There's just something about this that I don't feel comfortable about. I either saw it and was comfortable with it, or I could say, this just isn't going to work. But
Mm-hmm.
I never had to call and ask for extra information. And so I think that those are the things that I was looking for. And the
Would it be
thing is,
safe to say that I almost answered ahead of time any questions that you might have even had?
you did. You did. There were, on the first one especially, there were questions that I didn't even think to ask that
Yeah.
I saw in the paperwork.
Okay.
And I think it's
Good.
important for someone who's going to lend the money to read the paperwork, to read that stuff, not just to assume it,
Mm-hmm.
especially until you know the person really well. I have to admit,
Yeah.
I don't read as much of it now as I did beforehand,
Yeah.
but on the first couple, I did read it because I wanted to know what I was responsible for. I was newly retired. I didn't want to lose the money. I don't want to lose it now either, but I was newly retired, and I didn't know how our money aspect was going to work out. So I was, it was a big deal for me then. So, and the fact
Nice.
that and like I said, had I known you for 1 or 2 months, I'd have never lent you the money. And
Yeah,
you didn't.
I was going to ask you, one of the questions was, so, hey, once we got to know each other, after about 3-4 months, if I brought this opportunity to you, would you have been, as likely to invest with me at that point in time? If I asked you the opportunity too soon?
No, I wouldn't have. I would not have. Um, like I said, I have to know the person on an investment of this type. When you make a commercial investment, it's a little bit different. You have all kinds of programs and all kinds of legalities that hold you to that,
Mm-hmm.
or hold both parties responsible. This is not one that's covered by a lot of legalities. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
I'm lending you money. I'm almost saying, and I know this is probably wrong, but I'm saying it. I'm lending you money as a favor. I
Mm-hmm.
expect the favor back that you pay it. You pay me back.
Okay.
And so that's where I emphasize the personal aspect of it, and as well as the business aspect of it.
Nice. Nice. Well, Fred, thank you so much for taking the time, and doing this. One of the things I want to say to the viewers at this point in time is I can't tell you how valuable this interview is with Fred. When I was first starting off, just like you probably are, one of the things we all know is working with private investors and private lenders is kind of an extremely important part of growing your investment business, growing your real estate investment business. But there's not too many people out there teaching you the ins and outs of really how to build this relationship. It's not as easy as just, finding someone and calling someone. And for example, all you guys kind of at this point in time know that Fred is a private investor, private lender. Let me tell you one thing. You can't just call Fred up and be like, hey, well, you want to lend me money too? You got to court him. You got to build a relationship with him, just like you would have to build with anyone else who is a private lender. One of the techniques that some people teach you in regards to finding private lenders is there is a way for you to find out in your local authority who are some of the private lenders, because you can actually go to the courthouse, find out who is, you can see who's got mortgages, who has given mortgages to people. And if it's a bank name, and then some private name, that guy right there is a private lender. So potentially you could pick up the phone, get that guy's phone number and call him up and be like, hey, you want to lend me money? It doesn't work like that. You have to go through the process of building a relationship and building trust with these people before you can actually, even present the opportunity to them or ever ask them for any money. Would you say that's true, Fred?
That's absolutely true. I was thinking that because I've gotten several letters and a few phone calls from people that saw my name on New York Register and said, am I interested or do I lend out money? And my answer is always no. I'm interested, or I'm fully invested with the guy I'm with.
Yeah.
And so I don't take it any further.
Nice. Well, Fred, again, thank you so much. And I really, really appreciate you taking the time. And viewers, I hope you really, really got some good value out of this, because this is extremely, extremely important information. And it could be the key to your future success as a real estate investor. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. And, please comment, get in touch with me. Let me know if there's anything further I can do to help you guys.